When Faye exited from the Diablo world, the sun had begun setting to the west. However, the sun was still warm. The golden light passed through the incense tree's branches and scattered all over the floor. There was still the sweet scent in the air. He sat up from the bench, sleepily looked around, and noticed that the Princess Highness that previously had her eyes closed on the bamboo chair was now having dinner. On the stone table laid golden yellow barbecued meat, dozens of slices of gray rye bread, and a golden cup containing wheat oat soup. This Princess Highness's dinner was very normal. At her side, there still wasn't even one guard. The female guard Susan that took Faye into the small yard never appeared again. And the blonde knight Roman Pavlyuchenko, who always had a smile on his baby face, didn't bother making an appearance. He didn't know where those two people went. However, the 20 or so cents of powerful existences were still here closely protecting the princess. Faye could tell that about half of those cents were obviously different from before. Clearly, some guards had changed shifts. I was asleep. This was Faye's first sentence. He wiped off the shining drool that flowed down during his sleep on the corner of his mouth, and without any formal or anxious expressions, he asked with a grinning face as if asking an old friend. Then, Faye stood up and stretched himself, and then rudely sat down on the stone chair across from the princess, and then leaned over to sniff the smell of the grilled meat. Smells really good. Let me try some. When he picked up the knife and fork beside the silver plate and started skillfully cutting the golden brown meat with honey juice, Faye could clearly feel that the 20 or so cents hidden in the shadow intensified, just like 20 siege crossbows aimed at his back and ready to launch. Then, Faye saw the first princess waving her thin hands as if shooing away flies, and then immediately after, the guards concealed their scent again and hid quietly in the shadows. Hey! This dinner isn't prepared for you. This was the first time that the Emperor's first princess, who had beautiful and deep eyes, spoke to Faye in front of him. Her voice was a little hoarse, but the feeling it gave was a very peaceful one. So peacefully quiet that it was a bit cold, as if rejecting Faye 1,000 miles away. But Faye could clearly feel it. This feeling of apathy came from the bones, without any pretentious elements. It seemed like the owner of this pale white and weak body had gotten used to speaking to everyone with this attitude. You are the princess. You don't have to worry about food and clothing. So why are you so stingy? Faye just laughed in front of the princess's scolding, didn't care at all, and the knife in his hands shined under the sunlight, gently slicing the meat, and then putting another golden juicy barbecue meat into his plate. The royal crowning emissary group brought their own chefs, and their craft was clearly a lot better than the ones at Chambord City's royal palace. Faye enjoyed the meal very much, and at the end, he took the delicious oatmeal soup in the golden cup and took a sip. A slight tone of mood swings rarely appeared from the first princess. Her sapphire-like eyes glanced at the golden cup that Faye had drank from, and saw the soup stains and a clear lip print on it. Suddenly, she reached out, and then poured the rest of the soup onto the ground, and then stared provocatively at Faye. This scene almost dropped the jaws of those guards hiding in the shadows. Some people even almost revealed their traces. This was really incredible. They had all been old guardians for Princess Tanasha for a long time now, but when had they ever seen Princess Tanasha, who had been secretly known as the Isazura by the St. Petersburg aristocracy, show such a childish side of her? Unfortunately, Faye didn't know all this. He just kept on slicing and putting more meat into his plate. He didn't even look at the oatmeal soup on the floor and just focused on chewing the meat on his plate. His eyes were smiling, as if saying, I've already drank it, so I don't mind the rest getting poured out. Her Royal Highness First Princess was shocked for a second. Then, she started doing another thing that almost made the guards in the shadows bite off their tongue. She started fighting for the meat with Faye. The two started a war. The knives in their hands touched together every now and then, issuing a tink-tink sound. Princess Highness's body was skinnier and weaker, and her strength was also almost non-existent. She indeed didn't know any martial arts, just like a vulnerable normal human. No, to be more precise, one should say that she might even be physically weaker than a normal human being, seeming a little bit morbid. The war obviously ended in Faye's victory. He successfully dragged 3/4 of the roasted pig onto his plate, and Princess Xianxia had about 1/8 in her plate, and the remaining 1/8 were eaten by Fei before the war even began. Then the two didn't talk, and stared at each other and began the meat-eating competition. This time, the princess actually won. Although Fei ate at a faster rate, he had a lot more meat on his plate. After the Princess Highness finished her plate, she stared for a second, and then reached out her knife and began pillaging the meat on Fei's plate. Ding ding dong dong ding dong dong. The waves of sounds of knives colliding sounded quite nice. For the guards hidden in the shadow at the moment, their heads had long been in a blank state. They almost couldn't believe everything they were seeing right now. The highly and cold as ice Azura had disappeared, and what was presented in front of everyone's eyes was a childish girl. Who would have thought that the Princess Highness would have so much fun with a lowly little king? Was this still the Emperor's female saint, whose wisdom was like the sea with a meticulous mind, whose one word could save thousands of lives and with one thought could destroy a noble family? Fei didn't know about all of that. He thought that this princess was quite interesting. After a hearty meal, Fei looked up and down at the woman in front of him, and then his face gradually became serious. He stared right at the princess's face for a while, and then finally asked in puzzlement, "You got a problem?" This sounded completely like swearing. Sure enough, Her Royal Highness Princess rose her brows, and a hostile scent flashed through her eyes. At that moment, Fei suddenly had an illusion that the woman who sat in front of him had suddenly changed into another person. It was no longer the plain woman that was joking around with him like an old friend, but rather an ice-cold, peerless female hero that could control tens of millions of lives with a single thought. "King Alexander, I commanded Susan to summon you because I want to ask about the coronation in 3 days. How's the preparation going?" The princess's voice resumed its coldness from before, looking at Fei like a stranger, revealing the majesty of the imperial princess. Fei heard and smiled, got up from the stone chair, and then lazily stretched himself. "The coronation's preparation. Well, it has been going on well, but I'm not too clear on this task. Later, I will let the herald best who's responsible for this to come report to your Royal Highness Princess." Hehe, you guys know each other anyways. Fei was the typical type of person where soft treatments worked on him, but tough treatments wouldn't. Seeing how the princess was acting high and mighty now, he knew things wouldn't be fun anymore. To be honest, he really didn't care too much about Zenith Empire, so he just lazily answered the question and turned around to walk away. Impudent. Rude. So. For quick sounds broke the air, and 4 purple armored guard charged out from the side and cut off Fei's path. These people were about the same in height and weight, and they were all wearing the unified purple light armor. The long swords at their waists were half drawn from the scabbard, reflecting a cold light. They were all emitting a powerful force. Everyone was at least at the peak 2-star level. Ignorant savage, quickly kneel down and beg for forgiveness from Her Royal Highness Princess. The bodyguards shouted, with their eyes coldly staring at the little king as if the moment he moved unexpectedly, they would be prepared to fully draw out their swords to kill him. Hehe, just you guys? You can't stop me. Fei lazily raised his eyebrows, and a much stronger force came out of his body. The invisible pressure weighed down heavily onto these 4 purple armor guards. Not to mention drawing out their swords, they couldn't even move or even talk with ease. Even the other guards that were still hiding in the shadows were tightly locked by this sharp force, not even daring to breath heavily. "It's okay. Let him go." Her Royal Highness Princess, who was watching all of this silently suddenly waved her hands and withdrew her guards. At the same time, Fei smiled as he withdrew his force. The 4 purple armor guards suddenly felt the pressure on them disappear, and they looked at each other in horror, completely not expecting this lowly king in their eyes to actually have such a terrifying level of power. If they really fought, they were afraid that even if all the colleagues hidden in the yard came out, they would still not be this little king's match. The 4 guards all bowed to the princess and then disappeared. Fei then started heading out, taking big steps. After taking a few steps, he thought of something, suddenly stopped, then threw out a little purple bottle onto the grass in front of First Princess Xianxia, and then proceeded to leave without even looking back. I'd say, proud princess, your problems don't look that light, and it looks like you can't hold out much longer. For today, seeing as how you accompanied me for dinner, take this bottle of liquid medicine. Perhaps it will provide some help to your frail body. These were the last words Faye left her. Looking at the little purple bottle that fell on the grass in front of her, the first princess seemed to not have expected this scene. She suddenly wanted to laugh. This little king wasn't that big, but his temper was quite large. However, the next instant, the princess's face restored its calm. To her, ever since her 12th birthday, when the maid that had been serving her for years was killed by that brother of hers, she had never felt so powerless. From that instant, besides her cold and emotionless face, any other expressions were a luxury for her. Ever since then, no matter where or when, she constantly reminded herself to maintain her calm in front of her subordinates. Only this kind of expression would make her look powerful, and those who dared to challenge her would tremble in fear. God had given her a prominent life and an intelligent mind, but denied her the right to live as a healthy person. Every day at midnight, that never-ending pain would torment her. However, even after being diagnosed by the royal family's doctor to only have 6 months of life left, she still never showed any expression of pain in front of anyone. Even when she was alone in the palace, she still couldn't relax at all. But today it happened. At that instant, that sleepy-eyed look of the little king under the sun suddenly brushed aside the dust and uncovered distant memories. And that picture reminded her of an afternoon many years ago, which was also in autumn. She didn't know why, but for the first time she took off her disguise and then fooled around with this king for a bit like kids. In front of him and her hidden guards, for the first time, she had revealed too many expressions that should never have been hers. Could this be a one-time indulgence before the end of her life? The princess's fingers lightly tapped on the stone table. Her eyes lowered. She saw the little purple bottle Faye tossed on the ground. It was just quietly lying on the green grass. The bottle's smooth body had a bright luster on it. Hesitating for a few seconds, she didn't know why, but the princess suddenly got a wild idea. She bent to pick up the bottle, then readily shook it several times and looked at the mysterious purple fluid inside the bottle. Then, she pulled out the cork, gently smelled it, and a light fragrance flowed out. After inhaling it, she suddenly felt an unprecedented feeling of ease. Princess Xianxia quietly stuffed the corks back expressionlessly, but she secretly thought, could this really be effective? Such a rude maniac. Your Royal Highness, Princess, why don't you kill him? A quiet voice suddenly passed through her ear. At the same time, a purple flame suddenly cut through the air, and in the next instant, the purple flame converged, and a purple-clothed beautiful girl appeared out of the thin air and stood beside Xianxia. Her figure was curvaceous with slender legs and flawless skin. Her facial features were exquisite, and she has a pair of seductive eyes that could take a man's soul. She wasn't wearing any armor, just a light purple cloth. She was obviously extremely confident in her power. Her purple long hair was tied into a ponytail, just like a waterfall freely falling behind her head. In her hands was a peculiarly designed thin green short sword that had no scabbard, and the blade was directly exposed to the air. If Faye was here, he would definitely be surprised, at least from the entrance she made and her scent. This 16 to 17-year-old little girl was definitely an unfathomable elite. Keep him, he's still useful. We can't fish without bait. At the instant the purple-clothed girl appeared, the first Princess Xianxia restored her original calm state, slightly closed her eyes, and then started lightly tapping the stone table. This was her habit. When she started to think, she would subconsciously start to lightly tap with her slender fine fingers to a rhythm, sometimes quick and sometimes slow. The pair of hands felt as if they had the power to frighten people's souls. At St. Petersburg, everyone that feared her all gave her a name based on this kind of light rhythmic tapping death finger. After a long time, first Princess Xianxia finally opened her eyes and asked, Xian, tell me, what did you find? I just found a pile of useless garbage. None of the hounds came. The girl named Xian softly replied. She saw that the princess didn't want to talk about that little king, so she no longer bothered to continue discussing about him. After all, small roles like such were no different than thin air in her eyes, so it didn't matter whether they talked about him or not. Just like how the godly phoenix from the heavens wouldn't have any contact with a worm on earth. Xian didn't think anything would happen between the little king and the princess in the future. Didn't come? That's impossible. Her slender white fingers tapped at a strange beat, slightly hitting the stone table, sometimes slow, sometimes fast, and then her ocean-like blue eyes bloomed out a look of disdain. Based on my understanding on him, he definitely won't let go of a chance like this. That guy wants me dead so much that he could go crazy. So those obedient dogs of his have definitely already come here and set up. The purple-clothed girl slightly frowned, and then thought of something. She was puzzled. Does your Princess Highness mean they used some kind of technique to avoid my search? How is that possible? No single star-level warrior could avoid the god artifact Sky Vision's search, unless they sent moon-level elites this time. But the 3 moon-level elites of Zenith Empire are all at the capital right now. In this world, nothing is absolute. Maybe he found a way to help his hounds avoid Sky Vision, a search, or maybe he recruited a new moon-level elite, or maybe he has other ways to kill me. All in all, he will make a move for sure, and that's unquestionable. Then what should I do next? The purple-clothed girl accepted the princess's judgment. In fact, no one dared to doubt the elite of this emaciated body, because she had never been wrong a single time. Wait! Death Finger started tapping her unique rhythm, and her blue eyes shined with a unique brilliance. Whatever he hopes I do, I will do. We both know perfectly well about this kind of battle. It's all about who has more cards, but it's just that for this poor Shamboard city, I'm afraid that after this battle, not much will be able to remain standing. That arrogant little king was being that rude just now, so even if the whole city is destroyed, we are still letting him off easy. Xian was cold like an iceberg, completely uncaring about people's lives and deaths. There had already been countless people that lost their lives to her hands. In the midst of this chaotic world, lives were as worthless as dirt, and no one deserved pity. We will dismiss this topic. You've worked hard recently, so go rest. From today onwards, you don't have to activate Sky Vision to search anymore. Make preparations, and 3 days later, everything to come to light. But Xian still wanted to say something, but she saw Her Highness close her eyes and wave her hands, so she had no choice but to stop. She lowered her head, and then a purple flame exploded into the air without any heat. When it disappeared, so did the girl. Princess Tanasha got up and walked to her room. No one saw, but that purple bottle of potion had now been taken into her palms. At the same time, at a Shamboard City guest house, in a relatively secluded stone courtyard. Your Highness, after those women entered the back mountains of Shamboard City, they never came out. Your subordinate noticed that there are actually many guards set up near the prison in the Shamboard City's back mountain. The security level is very high, and it will be very difficult to get in without alerting them. Your subordinate is afraid that going in hastily might startle the enemy and hinder your plan. Therefore, I arranged a few soldiers to monitor the situation on the peripheral regions, and I personally came back to report the situation to you. In front of Thrace country's blonde Prince Eabina, the soldier that was sent during daytime to follow Elena, and the nun Akira was kneeling on the ground to report the whereabouts of those female rogues. As for that bald fatty's identity, I also got some information. He is Shamboard City's Warden Oleg, currently one of the favorite underlings of the king. He has a 1-star level warrior strength, and is just a small character. The strange thing is that those women's origins are very mysterious. It seems like no one in Shamboard City knows where they came from, nor did they previously appear in the city, the guard reported. They actually went to the back mountain. That's strange. Eabina's beak-like nose went up and down a few times, and then he asked again, did they all disappear in the back mountain? No one left during the meantime, right? Your Royal Highness. No one left the entire time. Okay, then that's good. Go deploy more soldiers. Tightly peg all the paths in the back mountain area. The moment they appear, immediately report back to me. Eabina thought for a second that these women probably didn't have too big of a background. Although their strength wasn't ordinary, their clothing seemed a bit poor, and their armor was mainly made with beast skins. Other than that 4-star long bow on the back of that peerless red-hair beauty, there wasn't anything else extraordinary. Maybe they were a team of mercenaries from somewhere far away, hired by the young king of Chambord City to maintain order during the ceremony. Towards these kind of people, Eabina wasn't too worried about the consequences of robbing their long bow. Besides, these girls were all very beautiful, so if he could also find a way to capture them alive, whether it was for keeping them to himself or gifting them to the aristocrat families in St. Petersburg, both were very good options. He decided to act the moment these girls made their next appearance, and first acquire that 4-star golden bow before he had to perform his real mission. With this extraordinary bow in hand, he would have more confidence about the mission he would be carrying out in 3 days. The guard got his order and quickly left the stone courtyard. At that moment, the guard named Okocha that Eabina sent earlier to investigate that mysterious elite that flew across Chambord City came in. He quickly walked towards Eabina, kneeled down and reported, "Your Highness, the mysterious elite went into the Chambord City's palace, and there have been no movements ever since. I waited and looked for almost half the day and still didn't catch any unusual events. It's just that the Empire's first princess's female guard Susan visited the palace and brought the little King Alexander to where the crowning emissary group is stationed. I suspect that mysterious elite is very likely King Alexander himself." "Alexander? That's impossible." Eabina was shocked for a second, but soon he shook his head and replied, 3-star level is the highest this idiot can go. Although I don't know how he turned from an idiot to a 3-star warrior. If you're saying that he leveled up again to 4 stars in just 3 or 4 days, that's absolutely impossible. Even the continent's martial art god Maradona didn't train so quickly. Pausing for a second, Eabina signaled Okocha to be dismissed. He frowned and thought for a while as he mumbled to himself, "It seems like this mysterious expert should be Isajura, Princess Tanasha's man that was placed in the palace. She must have known something early on, but she purposely showed this card of hers. What's the real meaning of this?" Eabina couldn't afford to hesitate the slightest. He knew very well of the methods that this Princess Highness used. Although Eabina was always arrogant and confident in his intelligence, and he indeed had some small clever tricks up his sleeves, he knew very well that his capability was only good enough to fool normal people. In comparison to Princess Tanasha, who was known to be the Isajura and female wisdom god by the whole empire, he was completely no match for her. What he could do wouldn't even be enough for this princess to frown slightly. He didn't doubt that as long as this princess wanted to, just one idea would be enough for him to die hundreds of times without even finding out how. Luckily, this time someone will come take care of her, and I'm just running the errands. After he stopped thinking about Isajura, Eabina's attention returned to Chambord City's little king. Although he didn't agree with Guard Okocha's judgment on the mysterious elite, he was the type of person that would always be cautious and alert. Thinking for a second, he said to a giant-like tall burly guard on his side, "You find an opportunity to test Alexander's strength. Don't get carried away. Just retreat after forcing out his true strength. Spare his life, since it still has some use." The big guard agreed, and a ball of yellow flame flashed below his feet. His giant body actually started sinking slowly as if he was in the water, and he ultimately disappeared from the stone floor, not even leaving the slightest trace behind. Another elite. After Fei left the residence of the Royal Coronation Legion, he headed directly to the Chambord Civil and Military Academy. He had to meet with the military authority Gordonbrook, who was busy with the administrative duties at the academy. The pressure that Fei felt at the residence of the Royal Coronation Legion made him more aware of the hidden dangers. He still didn't know what was about to happen, but it wasn't going to be something minor. Even the elder princess of Zenit Empire had to guard against it carefully. Therefore, Fei had to prepare in advance. Chambord's Civil and Military Academy was located at former head minister Bazar's mansion. It was the biggest stone building in Chambord after King's Palace. Like all the other buildings in Chambord, this building was more than 100 years old. Moss grew on all the slits between the white stones that formed the walls, and dried yellow vines crawled onto the wall. The building looked very aesthetically pleasing from far away. Faye heard the cheers of the children on the outside of the academy. After entering the building, he saw hundreds of kids practicing a set of simple punches under Lampard's guide. They were also practicing the horse step stance, an ancient Asian method to train the legs. With their legs, the idea of the horse step came from Faye, of course, and it was listed as one of the essential practices at the academy. The little ones were putting all their efforts on the practice. Drops of sweats slid off of their faces, and their clothes were all soaked. Although a few of the kids' legs were shaking, they bit their teeth and endured the pain. They all were children of ordinary civilians, and they understood their low social classes and the toughness of life. They knew that having this opportunity to learn and practice was already very fortunate. Therefore, each and every one of them tried their hardest to improve their strength to change their lives and their families' lives. None of them slacked off. Lampard was carrying his giant black sword on his back. He glanced through each of the kids and corrected their forms and mistakes as they occurred. This silent former number 1 warrior at Chambord didn't like politics or military very much. It seemed like he wasn't interested in anything. However, when he started to train the kids, he was full of enthusiasm. With the large amount of free time he had, he was now the headmaster at the academy and was responsible for carrying out 99% of all the training programs. With his reputation as the former number 1 warrior in Chambord and his 3-star warrior strength, he was the kids' favorite teacher right after Faye. "Hi, Principal!" After seeing Faye's arrival, looks of surprise and worship popped on all the kids' faces. They paused their practice, stood up straight, and saluted to Faye in a military manner in unison. "Hi, everyone!" He tried to be majestic and saluted back. It was the academy's rule that Faye should be addressed as the principal. After stepping into the academy, no matter who the person was and what kind of status the person had outside of the academy, he or she could only have one identity, a student or a teacher. Continue training. After hearing Faye's order, the kids went back to the horse step stance and practiced the set of punches. The little ones were all excited and their faces got all red. They tried their hardest to stand out to Faye. If Frank Lampard was their favorite teacher, then Faye would be their supreme idol, the supreme king. In this world that followed the law of the jungle, what Faye had demonstrated in the past conquered these kids who all had heroic dreams. "Thanks for all your hard work, Uncle Lampard." Faye was very respectful in front of Frank Lampard. This 3-star warrior was the best friend to the old king and took great care of Alexander. Like the old handsome Bast, Faye treated him as his elder. "Your Majesty." Lampard nodded, and his solemn face cracked a smile. He clearly felt that Faye's strength had increased. He could no longer estimate how strong Faye was, but one thing was certain: Faye had surpassed the threshold of the 3-star rank. If not, Lampard would have been able to at least feel it. "Uncle Lampard, these kids are the future of Chambord. If the academy needs anything, just let Uncle Bast know. Tell him that it's my order." Faye looked at the kids as if a rabbit had seen carrots. He rubbed his chin and smiled. "I've got to let these kids grow up quickly." Lampard nodded as he smiled. He thought for a moment and said, "Your Majesty, the academy has everything it needs except for good teachers and energy training scrolls. Some of these kids have great talent, and their talent attributes are solid. Metal, wood, water, fire, earth, all 5 energy attributes exists among them, and a few of them are good candidates for novice mages. It's too bad that there are limited energy training scrolls in Chambord. In total, there are 4 or 5 energy training scrolls, but they are only 1 to 2-star ranked, and they are only for water and fire energy. Brooke and I both have water energy, so..." Faye understood. The limited educational resources were an issue. There were a lot of professions on Azeroth continent, and there were a ton of training methods. Everyone had a different body type and different talent attributes. The only way to train and increase their strength was to train using the same attributed energy scroll or magic scroll specific to each person. If one used the incorrect attribute scroll, it wouldn't improve one's strength, and it could also injure oneself. "Let me handle this." Faye said goodbye to Lampard and found Gordonbrook, who was training a bunch of girls. Because girls' bodies were a bit weaker, Faye didn't require them to train as hard as the boys. During spare time, they were educated on simple military knowledge by Brooke. This was the area that Brooke was good at. Although he wasn't spectacular, he was sufficient to enlighten them with the basics. However, this situation made Faye aware of the importance of teachers for the academy. Faye spotted Louise, Pierce's daughter, among all the girls. The girl was even prettier after the simple daily cleaning rituals. Her icy temperament was the reason why Faye was able to spot her in a group of over 40 girls. The girls surrounded him, and he was only able to get out after telling a few stories. He then called Brooke aside and planned a few things. After listening to Faye, Brooke was surprised. "Your Majesty, is this real?" "It doesn't matter if it's real or not. From now on, send more soldiers to increase the investigation efforts. For people who dare to cause trouble, it doesn't matter who they are. Lock them up in the little black house. Remember, especially for people who are new and strange to us, investigate and keep close eyes on them. If they don't follow our rules, kick them out of the kingdom." Faye was harsh this time. The tense atmosphere at the residence of the Royal Coronation Legion gave Faye a bad feeling. Chambord might be under great danger, and this danger might be greater than what Chambord could defend against. It might even be greater than the disastrous situation that the black armored troops put Chambord under. Brooke accepted Faye's order and turned around to tell the soldiers until— "Wait!" Faye called him suddenly. After a moment of silence, he said, "Also, tell the soldiers to keep the guard up and be more alert. Increase their guard shifts during both the day and night. Also, notify the citizens that if the situation gets bad, they should be quick and leave the castle to hide temporarily." Brooke's face changed color. After hearing such a command, he really sensed the severity of the issue. "Go. Let's hope that it's just me thinking too much." When Faye left the Chambord Civil and Military Academy, there weren't a lot of people on the streets. Faye rode Black Tornado, the giant dog, and headed back in the direction of King's Palace. This big black dog was very intelligent. It walked slowly, and Faye was sitting on it thinking about all the things that he encountered today. He wanted to think everything through and find some clues, but he wasn't able to find any. He felt that a dark shadow had enveloped Chambord, but he wasn't able to tell where the danger came from and why there would even be danger. Faye's eyebrows suddenly rose. He sensed danger, as if he was targeted by a vicious beast. A deadly sensation locked onto him, as if a knife was pointed at his back. "Is someone following me?" Faye thought. His face didn't show anything, as he lightly tapped the big black dog under his crutch. This beast was almost too smart. It immediately understood Faye, and without any sign, it quietly changed directions and headed to a back alley that was almost empty. This back alley was close to the dump in Chambord. The air smelled really bad, and mice and cockroaches were everywhere. Faye rode Black Tornado deep into the back alley, jumped off, patted its head to tell it to go aside, and then stood there. After more than 10 seconds, an orange, yellowish flame flashed in the dark back alley. Wherever this flame flashed, the mud, walls, and rocks all seemed to melt and became thick. Then something amazing occurred. A yellow human figure appeared from the wall. After the flame went away, the yellow figure turned into a tall, strong man, and he stood in front of Faye. "You intentionally led me here, didn't you?" A joking expression appeared on the man's face. In the dark back alley, his tall figure seemed to isolate Faye from the outside world. His body emitted a sense of power as his eyes locked onto Faye. He didn't hide his murderous intent one bit. The man was more than 7 feet tall, 210 centimeters, and he was very strong. His muscles filled up the leather armor as if they were about to explode. He stood there, like a bear, like a giant wall. The way he looked at Faye was like a cat looking at a mouse. With his lip lifting up, he didn't hide his joking expression. There was reason for him to do so. From the information that he received, the little king in front of him was only a 3-star warrior. Also, Okocha was suspicious that the mysterious 4-star warrior was this guy in front of him, but he didn't think so. No one in this world could advance to 4-star rank from 3-star rank in less than half a month. It was impossible. Therefore, when Okocha ordered him to test Faye's strength, he followed Faye tightly and didn't hide at all. In his eyes, the fact that Fei led him to this back alley was like an insect jumping into a spider web. But before testing this dumb king's strength, he didn't mind to shame the dignity of this king who appeared to be majestic. He was a little abnormal. Nothing was more thrilling to him than ravaging the higher-up royals and nobles. Therefore, when he was talking, he didn't hide his strength at all. It didn't take very long for a cloud of energy to fly towards Fei. It was enough to shake the land. Wherever the orange, yellowish energy passed by, it was plated with a layer of yellow. Under such an environment, the man could control all the soil and rocks within 50 yards from him. He was an Earth-attributed master. His name was Hirschsen. His strength was ranked number 3 in Thrace Kingdom. In between his palms, numerous skulls were smashed into pieces. They belonged to defenseless kids, enchanting beauties, respectable elders, poor citizens, nobles, and more. He was even ordered to kill a prince of Thrace Kingdom. It was a masterpiece that he could never forget about. He let that little 6-year-old prince wail for 10 days and 10 nights before he died. That poor thing, when he died, there wasn't a bone in his body that was left intact. By that point, his body had already turned into a pile of stinky, black meat paste. Hessian turned the little prince's skull into a wine cup and carried it with him, using it to drink. Quickly, Hirschsen saw the scene that he wanted to see. After he demonstrated his strength slightly, the king's confidence melted like the ice in a stove. His face changed color and his confidence turned into panic. Also, he tried to calm himself down, but Hirschsen saw the king's legs shaking like crazy. He was already looking around and observing the terrain, trying to find the best opportunity to escape. This dumb king was trash as he expected. "You want to run?" Hirschsen stepped forward and the joking expression on his face became even more obvious. "You? Who are you? What do you want to do?" The king said in a shaky voice. What made Hirschsen mad was that this guy covered his chest with his hands, as if Hirschsen was about to do something inappropriate to him. "Me?" After seeing this, he was more confident with his guess. He chewed on a grass stem that he put in his mouth and whispered the words out in between his teeth disdainfully. "Little guy, Daddy here is a killer. I will kill anyone if the price is right. What do you think I'm here to do?" He tried to scare the hapless king in front of him even more. You? Kill me?" The little king trembled like a timid rabbit. He screamed as his face turned pale. He stared at the man in shock. "Do you know who I am? I'm the king of Chambord. Do you dare to kill a king? Dumbass." Hirschsen was too lazy to say anything more to the little king. Some people lacked even the basic self-awareness and lived in the world that they constructed for themselves. The privilege that they were born with made them arrogant. Not knowing that without their privilege, they were nothing. How sad was that? The little king in front of me is this type of naive and sad person. Hirschsen walked closer step by step. He definitely wasn't going to kill this little king. After all, this king was an important part to the plan that was about to initiate. If the king died, it would destroy that person's plan, and he couldn't handle that. All he wanted was to enjoy the scene of a king struggling and wailing in front of him. You, don't come closer. What do you want?" The little king took many steps back. His face was as pale as a little rabbit that was pushed into a dead corner by a big wolf. He asked cautiously, "Why do you want to kill me? Who sent you? Tell me." "There must be some misunderstanding." Hirschsen stepped closer and closer. The orange-yellow flame flickered around him. The strength of a 4-star Earth-attributed warrior was fully exerted. Wherever he stepped, even the hard rock would become a thick liquid, as if it turned into a swamp. This was the power of a 4-star warrior. He could change the surroundings and create a battlefield that was the most suitable for him. "Who sent you here?" The little king trembled even more. Under the cold, murderous intent, his conscience seemed to collapse, and that was the only thing that he was shouting. Unfortunately, it didn't matter how overconfident Hirschsen was. He didn't answer any questions. After all, he wasn't really going to kill the king. But at this moment, something strange happened. When Hirschsen was less than 10 yards from the king, his expression changed. He suddenly saw the trembling king's expression changed from panic to disappointment. Yes, it was the disappointment that kids would have when they didn't get any comfort from their parents for crying or throwing a tantrum. Before he could react, he heard the little king say, "Sigh, this isn't fun. I didn't get anything useful out of this. Hey, Blackie, tell me, was my act that bad? Bark, bark, bark." The big black dog that had laid behind Faye yawned and barked out of boredom. Its big shiny eyes glanced at Faye, as if it was urging, "Let's go back to the palace after you quickly finish this. I haven't had any dinner yet." "Whatever." Faye looked at Hirschsen in dissatisfaction. The timid expression was nowhere to be found. He instantly turned from prey to predator. His knuckles popped as he held on his fist tightly, shook his fist and said, "If you aren't willing to cooperate, then I'll change up my methods. I'll let my fists do the talking." Hirschen's face turned cold, and he said in a disdainful voice, "Just you." Faye didn't say anything back. He started stepping forward. Hirschen's face soon turned ugly. Every step Faye took, the powerful sensation that his body emitted grew stronger. The sensation grew from peak 2-star up. When Faye took his 5th step, the sensation was not weaker than that sensation that Hirschen's 4-star Earth-attributed energy emitted. Although there were no flashy energy flames, this explosive sensation gave Hirschsen a sense of danger. "I was tricked." Hirschen's heart dropped. It was this moment that he knew that he fucked up. He thought he had the dominance from the beginning and was laughing at the king for not having enough self-awareness. But who knew that this king was acting and that damn dog was watching the drama? Especially that giant black dog. The scornful look that it gave him made him feel like he wasn't even worthy to the dog. "You are dead." When the string of inferiority and pride in his heart was triggered, Hirschsen fell into a state of total violence, as if the anus of a bear was plugged up with a stick by someone. He roared as the orange-yellowish energy shot all around like a high-power light bulb and lit up the dark back alley. Then, his body turned into a bullet and flew towards Faye as he threw out a punch. Faye stepped forward and answered the punch with a punch. Boom! The fists met in mid-air. At this moment, it seemed that even time paused for a while. Then, the whole back alley started shaking and that orange-yellowish flame started to crack. A tiny visible wave appeared on Hirschen's fists and moved towards his arms. What followed the wave was a series of bone-cracking noises. Then it was Hirschen's body. It was like a broken bag. He tilted and flew back at a speed that was faster than his initial charge. Blood spilled everywhere. Hirschsen felt like he was in a freezer. He couldn't believe what had happened. His eyeballs almost fell out. The unstoppable anger had turned into a deep sense of fear. How? It couldn't be. Hirschsen trained and exercised Earth-attributed energy. For Earth-attributed warriors, strength and defense were their advantages. They were known for Earth-like thickness and rock-like tenacity. Their physical bodies were harder than any other attributed warriors of the same rank. It was that fact that allowed him to use his fists to initiate the attack. However, the cold, hard truth destroyed his confidence. The little king in front of him shattered the 4-star Earth-attributed energy that he was proud of with a simple punch. Then, an unknown vicious force entered his body and cracked the bones inside his arms. How? Is he a 5-star warrior already? It only took a little time for his confidence to crack down. After getting his pride and what he relied on destroyed, this huge gap in the real strength between them caused Hirschsen to subconsciously amplify Faye's power. It was that thought that scared the soul out of him. He no longer had the courage to fight. As he was flying back from the initial contact, he utilized all the energy he had and the orange-yellowish flame flashed through the dark back alley again. Like how he appeared, he suddenly turned into a pile of mud that had a human figure and disappeared as he drilled into the soil. Yuck! This coward! Faye spit onto the ground as he yelled, "How could a coward like you become an assassin?" Chase. This man had to know the things that Faye desperately wanted to know. Therefore, how could the king let go of such an important clue? Faye waved at the back, and the big black dog who was lazily lying there and counting the stars roared, jumped up, and rushed towards Faye like a tornado. Faye jumped up and mounted it as it chased the smell that the man left behind. Faye had to admit that the stealth technique that Earth-attributed warrior used was very effective around such a terrain. Especially for people like Hirschzen who were 4-star ranked, their trace under the stealth technique was very hard to track down. On top of that, Hirschzen seemed to spend a lot of time on the stealth technique. When he merged with the soil, nothing was visible from the outside, as if what happened in the back alley was an illusion, and there was never such as a person named Hirschzen. Unfortunately, this man was injured, and he wasn't able to use the perfect stealth technique. Faye also had locked Hirschzen's presence down, so there were traces. Faye carefully sensed the Earth-attributed energy that was surging through the soil as he sped up, Black Tornado, to chase after him. Hirschzen was very tricky. After he merged into the soil, he tried to minimize and hide his presence as he slowly recovered from the damage that Faye dealt to him. It wasn't the first time that he had to escape. He had successfully escaped from the chase of a 6-star master before. Therefore, after the initial panic, he had already calmed down. There was nothing in the world that would point to the true strength of the little King Alexander, a 5-star warrior. This surprise shocked him, but he also felt very fortunate. Thank God I reacted fast. After one encounter and knowing that I wasn't his match, I didn't hesitate, escaped quickly and didn't fall under the hands of that little king. I have to inform His Highness Okocha as soon as possible. Otherwise, this may affect the plan. Hirschzen traveled underground with some difficulty. The injuries in his arms had affected his traveling speed. Fortunately for him, his mission was accomplished. He didn't have to worry about not being able to face the prince's questions and punishment. But at this moment, danger emerged. Boom! Boom! 2 loud noises sounded. They took Hirschzen by surprise and he didn't know what was happening. Before he could react, he felt 2 enormous forces break open the firm soil on top of him and continue to smash down. Damn! That little king had caught up. He is using his brutal force to disrupt the ground to attack me? But how did this damn king sense my existence underground? At this critical moment, Hirschzen couldn't think too much. He gave up on protecting his injured arms and tried his hardest to rush forward. His traveling speed increased and he puked up a mouthful of blood as he did so. All of this effort was just enough to help him to escape from that attack. The 2 forces struck deep down into the ground and they missed Hirschzen's back by less than an inch, 2 centimeters. Before Hirschzen could react, he heard another 2 booming sounds and another 2 forces struck the ground. The forces were aimed at Hirschzen. They didn't miss his location at all, as if that little king had X-ray vision. Hirschzen was scared to death. His only option was to speed up and rush forward as quick as possible. On the surface of the ground, the big black dog, Black Tornado, really did turn into a tornado. It formed a strange route as it ran forward. Faye continuously jumped into the air and punched at the ground. Under the dust, a series of fist marks were ironed into the soil, and the forces from the punches cracked open the ground and formed numerous spider webs that spread to the surroundings. Faye's fists contained the monstrous physical power of the level 21 barbarian. The power was sent deep into the ground and forced Hirschzen to run around like a mouse. Actually, more than 10 seconds ago, Faye almost lost the man. But at this moment, Black Tornado demonstrated the tracking ability that surprised Faye after the enhancement of the Hulk potion. This beast didn't just increase in size and physical strength. The dog's ability to smell things was amplified as well. During the high-speed chase, Black Tornado only needed to sniff the ground once to locate where Hirschzen was. It hadn't made a single mistake yet. The beast was like a GPS. 1 man and 1 dog were like cats teasing a rat, chasing after Hirschzen on the ground. At this point, Faye could easily capture the man who was previously acting like a dumbass. However, he suddenly realized that he should trace through the vines to find the fruit. He might be able to find more people who were hiding in the dark and more surprises if he followed this man. Therefore, Faye only tried to harass the man and not end his life. Boom! 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 Each punch that landed on the ground had just missed Hirschzen's body. As if Faye was playing a game of whack-a-mole, 1 man and 1 dog were having a lot of fun, and everything was going along Faye's plan. Where Hirschzen was headed was getting clearer by the second. He was headed to the inn/caravansary region at Chambord. It was the place where all the emissaries from all the kingdoms lived. Shit. So it is these foreign people that are causing all the trouble. I want to see which of these people dare to fuck with me. Faye continued the chase. It was already dark, and there were only a few people on the streets. However, there were Chambord soldiers guarding this region. After hearing the loud booming noise, they formed into a line as they yelled and tried to stop Faye. Back off! Faye yelled as he approached them. I command all of you to withdraw from the caravansary region. This region no longer needs protection. Ah! It's Alexander, His Majesty. The soldiers quickly recognized that the person mounted on the big black dog was King Alexander. But they didn't know where the enemy is. But after hearing the order, they didn't hesitate and withdrew from the caravansary region like a tide. Faye didn't pause and rushed into the caravansary region. There were about 20 emissaries from all the kingdoms, and they were all concentrated into this region. Faye didn't have the chance meet with all the princes and emissaries, so he wasn't too familiar with the surroundings. He just let Black Tornado do its thing and follow the smell of Hirschsen. This quickly alerted the guests who were staying here. Who dares to cause trouble here? How dare you? His Highness is already asleep. Do you want to die? Arrest him. A series of high-pitched angry shouts sounded from the building on both sides of the street. However, Faye and the dog were too fast. Normal people couldn't tell what was happening at all. They could only feel a wind blowing through them as the booming sounds passed by. Some star-ranked warriors and mages saw what was happening, but the sensation that the man and the dog emitted extinguished their curiosity and will to follow. After chasing another 200 yards, Hirschsen traveled into a large stone building and stopped escaping. It looks like we found the source. Faye rode the dog and they jumped over the 4-yard-high wall easily. After getting into the yard of the building, many guards rushed out and surrounded them, but the most powerful warrior among them was only a 1-star warrior. Under the enormous, ocean-like sensation Faye emitted, all of them had trouble standing there and breathing. None of them could yell or stop Faye. Bark! 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 The dog sniffed and started barking at a location in the stone building. The target is in that room, was what the black beast wanted to say. Faye sneered. He felt that after Hirschsen traveled to this place, he stopped moving. Faye looked up and saw many people through the windows. From the feel of it, a few of them were way stronger than the guards in the yard. It was very bright in the building. People were walking around, talking and cheering. It seemed like there was a party going on. Ha! I'm so smart. I've taken these bastards by surprise. None of them will expect this. Faye decided not to give the opponents any breathing room. He jumped on Black Tornado. As the beast jumped and charged up, they left a series of blurry afterimages in the air. He was sure that the one who was behind the scene was in this room. He didn't hold back and kicked the wooden gate. The huge wooden gate that was carved from a hard black wood shattered into pieces and flew everywhere. The party quieted down instantly. Everyone here was shocked by this. After a brief moment of silence, people started yelling and screaming, and the sound of people drawing weapons followed. Who dares to interrupt? Don't you know that His Highness has guests over? Guards, arrest this intruder. In a flash, the people in the building reacted. 8 simply dressed maids and a dozen guards pushed over the stone tables and chairs, and quickly surrounded a few people who seemed like the hosts and formed layers of human shield. Bark! 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 That was the first thing that the big black dog did when it entered the building. The threatening deep roars dominated over all the other sounds. The crowd was surprised by the beast. What is this? A horse? A dog? This thing is huge, they all thought. Who are you? A brown-haired, fancily dressed pretty boy pointed at Faye as he shouted angrily. Faye sneered. He decided to capture both the perpetrator and person behind the scene. Therefore, the first thing he did when he entered the building was not to see who was in the building, but to locate where the man who tried to assassinate him was at by charging over and unleashing his level 21 barbarian strength. A strong breeze blew inside the building. Boom! Faye punched into the ground. The force shattered the bluestone-tiled floor and created a crack in the ground. Fei laughed as he reached down to the ground and pulled Hirschsen, who was half dead, out of the ground by his hair, as if he was pulling out a carrot. Bang! The severely injured Hirschsen was thrown in the middle of the building. The orange-yellowish flame flashed through his body, and his body was liquefying again. The man was trying to escape again? Black Tornado? Wasn't going to give him the chance as it ran up and bit on Hirschsen's ankle with its sharp white teeth. The man gave a blood-curdling scream before he fainted. The series of events happened in a few seconds. Both Black Tornado's viciousness and Fei's toughness shocked everyone. A few guards who wanted to impress their masters felt their legs trembling and didn't dare to move at all. The intruders were too violent. They didn't doubt that the intruders could smash them into paste with just a single punch. Tell me, who are you guys? And why did you send an assassin to kill me? Chambord's king. Fei stepped on Hirschsen's face that was covered in both mud and blood, glanced around, and observed everyone's expression. None of them dared to look back at him in the eyes. At this time, the guards outside rushed into the building. What happened in the building was so loud that even the soldiers outside noticed the commotion. The sound of the footsteps became denser and denser, and more guards rushed in like the flood. They surrounded Fei with swords and spears that shined under the light, warning Fei of their sharpness. The whole scene looked like a big blooming flower. The guards were the petals, while Fei and the beast were the delicate core. Although they had the intruders surrounded, the people in the building didn't feel any safer, including the fancily dressed pretty boy who was clearly the most protected. The surging sensation of the violent force that came off of Fei hinted to them. Even with them all added up, they were no match for this man and his dog. Bark! 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 The beast roared in coordination with its master's will. The deep roars gave people an illusion, as if the next time that this beast opened its mouth, it would spout out deadly flames that could burn down the world like a holy dragon. Who's in charge here? Step the fuck out. Because he didn't know anyone here, Fei let himself loose. The manner and temperament of a king was nowhere to be found. Instead, the way that he was stepping on Hirschsen and the way he expressed himself made him look like a bandit. Cough! 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 After a moment of silence, someone finally spoke. Your Majesty, you? Don't associate yourself with me. Fuck off. I'm not your Majesty. Fei cut the person off instantly. He thought to himself, you guys sent an assassin after me, so you guys definitely don't take me as the king. As he was about to swear back more, he suddenly realized that this voice was very familiar. It sounded like, huh? Fei was a bit surprised. The next moment, a middle-aged man with a grateful temperament stepped out of the crowd and said, Your Majesty, you are? Oh, Black Tornado was the one that reacted first. The tricky beast that left people with the impression of a dragon suddenly became soft. It turned from a violent beast to a cute puppy. Its tail wiggled like a wind as a flattering expression appeared on its face. It slowly walked up to the person, lied on the floor, and looked up as if it saw its mother. Fei was dumbfounded. Uncle Bast, why are you here? He said as he covered up his face. He was embarrassed. It seemed like there must have been some misunderstanding. The person who stepped out of the crowd was Fei's future father-in-law, the old handsome Bast. His eyes twitched a few times, but he quickly put himself back together. He saluted peacefully and clearly replied, Your Majesty, as you ordered. I'm here to invite Prince Modric, His Highness from Lake Kingdom, to the party at the King's Palace tomorrow. Allow me to introduce him to you. This is the young Prince Modric who has a spot in the 10 elites. Fei felt like the sky was spinning. Holy shit! This misunderstanding is out of this world. From what Fei knew, Lake Kingdom had been a close ally of Chambord for more than 100 years. They had saved Chambord numerous times, and it helped Chambord out at the last military practice that Zenith Empire hosted. On top of that, this Prince Modric was the ideal influencer at Lake Kingdom that favored the alliance with Chambord. This kingdom, this person, they would never send assassins after me. It looks like I made a mistake. Fei never expected that not only would he not be able to find the fruit through the vine, but would instead touch a cactus. Faye just wanted to learn the identity of the man who he beat to half to death and hide into the ground. He was too embarrassed. Fortunately, his future father-in-law was very smooth. The old handsome didn't seem to be embarrassed at all. In a few words, he explained the stance of both parties. It turned out that the fancily dressed pretty boy was the third prince of Lake Kingdom, Modric himself. The atmosphere in the building returned to normal after Bast's explanation. The guards exited the building with cold sweat covering their bodies. The party continued. However, everyone looked at Faye with strange expressions on their faces. They were very surprised that the violent intruder was the young King Alexander of Chambord. Didn't people say that Alexander is a retard that only has the intelligence of a 3-year-old? When did he become such a master? Fortunately, Modric was a very kind prince. A smile was on his handsome face the whole time. With his great stance and graceful temperament, he looked like a true royal compared to the bandit-like Faye. The party slowly became more cheerful. Faye had to endure his embarrassment as he told Bast and Modric what had happened. I know this man. After a few drinks, Prince Modric looked closely at the injured man who was already tied up with iron chains and said, "This man is Hirschsen. He is Thrace Kingdom's Prince Okocha's personal guard, one of the few 4-star warriors that Thrace Kingdom has." Thrace Kingdom. Faye was excited. He thought that the trace would end here with this big misunderstanding, but who knew that the only clue he had revived? He quickly confirmed, "Prince Modric, are you sure it's him? I shouldn't be wrong. This is one of the only few masters in Thrace Kingdom, and his only job is to protect Prince Okocha, who is one of the 5 eagles. He is also stronger than the other 4-star warriors, which left me a vivid impression. King Alexander, if he used Earth-attributed energy during the previous fight, then I'm 100% sure." Modric swirled his golden, emerald-embedded wine cup as he said confidently, "Haha, this guy is an Earth-attributed energy warrior. Haha, this is great." Faye was overjoyed. He walked up to Hirschsen, picked up the tightly tied man and gave him 3 strong slaps. Blood spilled and a few white teeth flew out of Hirschsen's mouth. The pain woke up Hirschsen, who had fainted. He tried to move, but the painful sensation from his 4 limbs stopped him. It turned out that to prevent him from escaping, the guards had pierced all of his limbs with the specially made iron chain as they were tying him up. His body was locked down. "So it was Okocha who sent you after me?" Faye held Hirschsen up by the chest and asked viciously. Hirschsen slowly opened his eyes. At this point, he was fully aware of his surroundings. Not only was he severely injured, but the iron chain that tied him up through his limbs were specially made for high-level warriors and mages. It countered them hard by suppressing the energies that they had. Even if Hirschsen was at his prime, he couldn't escape from it. With Faye, who had easily defeated him, standing beside him, he knew he had no chance. He gave Faye a deadly stare, and then turned his head and kept silent. "Hey, you are already half dead. Why is this dumb assassin trying to act like a martyr and not giving up?" Faye thought. However, Faye didn't stop his actions. 2 more slaps landed on Hirschsen's face. Looking from far, it looked like as if 2 bread loaves were stuffed into Hirschsen's cheeks. His lips were swollen, and all of his teeth went missing. With his nasal bone broken, he could only inhale and couldn't exhale. Both the hosts and the guests at the party didn't react well to this. Hiss! They all took a deep breath as a chilling sensation passed through their spines and up to their brains. "Oh God of War! This young king of Chambord is too violent. A few slaps seemed like a few hammer strikes. How much strength does he have?" People murmured amongst themselves as they thought about the king busting through the gate a few moments ago. And now this. Bark! 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 Black Tornado was the only creature that was excited. It stopped biting and chewing on a roasted pig, stood up and roared with a fierce expression on its face. However, the beast quieted down and went back to the roasted pig after Bast gave it a stare. After seeing this, the people from Lake Kingdom thought to themselves, "This dog is the perfect match for this king. Both are violent animals." Faye, on the other hand, threw Hirschsen back onto the ground, thought for a while and asked, "Uncle Bast, Do you know where the representatives from Thrace Kingdom live? You are going to. Bast knew Faye too well. He immediately understood what Faye wanted after that sentence. His nerves tensed up and advised, Alexander, don't act on an impulse. We aren't 100% sure of what is going on. If there are any misunderstandings, it may cause tension and disputes between the kingdoms. Impulse? Disputes. Faye smiled as he shook his head. I'm not acting under impulse, and there won't be any disputes. Didn't this Thrace Kingdom always support Blackrock Kingdom, which is opposition against Chambord? Why would they come to congratulate me on my coronation? I bet they are up to no good. This is a good opportunity to arrest this damn prince. If there are any misunderstandings, let their king come and talk to me. The dominating demeanor again shocked the guests from Lake Kingdom. The old handsome Bast hesitated. He finally nodded and said, Should we notify Lampard and Brooke? Once we confirm that they are guilty, it won't be too late to arrest them. If you go by yourself, I'm all right with just me. After Faye said that, he waved and the big black dog who was laying there enjoying the roasted pig jumped up and rushed to Faye's side as if an elite soldier heard his commander's order. There were too many people here and Faye didn't know them well. Faye wouldn't tell Bast of all the bad discoveries that he made. But since the man who tried to assassinate him had been identified, then Thrace Kingdom was the most suspicious suspect. He might even be able to get some more important information if he could arrest people like Prince Okocha, so he had to be decisive. Otherwise, he might miss the opportunity. King Alexander, wait up, Prince Modric suddenly said. If you don't mind, I'm willing to bring soldiers and warriors of Lake Kingdom to give you a hand. Ah, that would be great. Thank you in advance. Faye was delighted and quickly showed his thanks. His original plan was to arrest some of the important figures that Thrace Kingdom sent here on his own. However, most of Thrace Kingdom's soldiers, guards, and servant would have escaped. If Modric could assist him by locking the whole place down, then there would be a chance to arrest all the people from Thrace Kingdom. It looked like that this Prince Modric really was a figure that favored Chambord. After a few minutes, Faye and Modric surrounded the building that Thrace's representatives were staying at with hundreds of soldiers and guards under the cover of the dark night. This building was located at a remote corner in Chambord Kingdom and was not connected to any other structures. The wooden gate of the building was fully closed. 2 magic lanterns were hung by the gate. They had brightened up the atmosphere as they swung in the wind. The whole place was dead silent. Modric ordered the soldiers to quickly guard all the exits of the building, and himself with his personal guards guarded the main gate. This was after all the dispute between Chambord and Thrace Kingdom. This would be all the help that Lake Kingdom could provide. They didn't follow Faye and attack the building. Faye and Black Tornado got closer to the main gate quietly. The moon had hidden into the dark clouds. A chilling breeze passed by and blew up the dried leaves on the ground. There was an unspeakable desolateness as death seemed to hide within the silent dark night. This silence could quickly turn into a chaotic and lethal battle. Faye got closer and closer to the building. Shit! Things have changed. Faye's face changed color when he was about 5 to 6 yards away from the main gate. He suddenly sensed a thick, bloody smell. The smell seemed to carry some heat as well. Faye thought of something as he rushed in and kicked open the huge wooden gate. Boom! The wooden gate that was about 500 to 600 pounds flew inward, and Faye rushed in, followed by the dog. Faye was shocked by what he saw in the building. The big black dog was shocked as well, and froze there. They stared at each other in unison. How did this happen? The scene in the building was beyond Faye's imagination. 20 to 30 corpses lied behind the gate. It was obvious that they died not too long ago, since the wounds were still bleeding and the heat from the blood created white steam in the cold autumn night. After a careful observation, Faye was a bit relieved. These corpses were dressed differently than Chambord soldiers. A hick bloody smell filled the air. The blood from the corpses merged into streams. The blood didn't solidify. It slowly flowed on the ground. The building was quiet and scary. Lights in the rooms farther away were all on, but there were no sounds. This was like a death castle. Faye and the beast kept their guard up as they slowly walked further into the building. Nothing was alive on the way. On the stairs, in the garden, under the trees, on stone chairs, at the corners, beside pillars, corpses were everywhere. It was clear that these people encountered something they couldn't defend against while they were still alive. Most of them didn't even have the chance to draw out their weapons. The unbelievable expression on their faces indicated that they saw something devastating. Faye observed closely. He found that there were at least 4 wounds on each corpse, and they were deep into the bones. The more unfortunate ones had their body separated, and detached limbs stacked up on the ground. The scene was terrifying, as if this was the hell mentioned in all the horror stories. The man and the dog sprinted to the final hall in the building. This hall was where Prince Okocha lived. This place was filled with corpses, but there were finally signs of fighting and struggling. By this time, Faye could tell that the killer was a fire-attributed warrior or mage. There were traces of fire damage, some corpses were even burned to ashes. The air here smelled like blood combined with roasted and burnt meat. Faye's eyes focused closely. He saw a more well-kept corpse lying at the end of the hall. This corpse was wearing a set of shiny armor. Magic energy loomed around the armor. It was obviously an expensive piece of magic equipment. The corpse had blonde hair and his face could be considered handsome if he was still alive, but his aquiline nose ruined the whole picture. He was also wearing a golden crown that was decorated with a dozen gems. His frightened expression indicated that he couldn't believe what was happening at the last moment of his life. His throat was sliced by something sharp and the wound had burn marks. Tons of bloody bubbles were spurted out of his mouth. The blood started to condense and turn black. Nothing was alive in the stone building and courtyard. The whole emissary group from Thrace Kingdom, including more than 200 people, were massacred by an unknown enemy with almost no resistance. The wind at night gave Faye a chill to his bones. From the body temperatures, the battle occurred less than 10 minutes ago. That's what surprised Faye the most. The emissary group from Thrace Kingdom lived only about 3 miles, 4 kilometers, away from Lake Kingdom's emissary group. It meant that when he was with Prince Modric and Bast, the 200 people were murdered not far away. There were a few star-ranked warriors from Thrace Kingdom, but Faye didn't feel anything. Normally, he would have definitely sensed it. It was too terrifying. What rank warrior or mage could pull this off in silence? And for what reason would attackers murder the prince from Thrace Kingdom? Faye felt that the situation was getting more complex. He originally thought that after solving Hersham's assassin case, he would get to the bottom of it. But from what he knew now, his hypothesis couldn't be farther from the truth. Faye suddenly heard footsteps behind him. "Your Majesty." This? It was Bast and Prince Modric. After waiting for a long time outside and not hearing any fighting noises nor phase calls, they got worried and rushed in with the soldiers. They discovered that the situation was off when they saw all the dead bodies on the ground. "I didn't kill these people. When I came in, they were already dead." Faye frowned as he told them what he saw firsthand. Both Bast and Modric were terrified. After examining the corpse in a magic armor lying at the end of the hall, Modric yelled, "This is Prince Okocha of Thrace Kingdom." Okocha is one of the 5 eagles, and had 4-star ranked abilities. Who could have cut his neck open with just one strike? Faye shook his head. Blackie the dog sniffed around the hall, as if it was trying to find some clue. Only 6-star ranked masters could have done this, and there had to be more than one. Otherwise, they couldn't kill these many people without causing any chaos. Modric was shocked by his own findings. "Your Majesty, how should we handle this?" Bast seemed calm. However, he was a minister, not a soldier or a general commander, so he wasn't used to these kinds of bloody scenes. His face was pale and he tried really hard not to puke. "Order everyone to back away from the building, and then tell Brooke to send soldiers to lock this place down. Don't let anyone else know what happened here temporarily," Faye said. It seemed to be the only thing that could be done. The situation was getting more complicated. Faye was sure that Chambord somehow was unknowingly involved in a huge vicious conspiracy. It was a disaster in the making. If it really were 6-star ranked masters who carried out this Thrace massacre, then one of them could easily tear Chambord apart. The residents of Thrace Kingdom's emissary group was quickly locked down by Brooke and the soldiers. Faye ordered some forensics doctors to investigate the scene at night, wishing that these doctors could find the clues that were neglected. These bodies would have to be buried or burnt soon. Although it was already late autumn, these corpses had to be quickly dealt with, just in case they got smelly or rotted faster than expected and caused diseases such as the plague. The soldiers and guards from Lake Kingdom who assisted Faye were ordered by Prince Modric to keep their mouths shut. However, a tragedy of this scale wouldn't be kept secret for too long. The outside world would know sooner or later. When Faye, Bast, Modric and the soldiers went back to Lake Kingdom Emissary Group's residence, a Lake soldier rushed to them and reported, "Your Highness, King Alexander, that captive named Hirschzen, he is dead." Everyone was shocked by the news. Dead? How did he die? Faye asked angrily. After the whole emissary group from Thrace Kingdom was murdered, the only possible clue that they could get on the situation would have to come from this Earth-attributed warrior captive. Faye was planning to interrogate Hirschzen immediately, but no one could have imagined that the last bit trace of the situation would end this way. It was suicide. He hid a poison pill in his mouth. After you guys left, he died of that poison, the soldier explained. Faze headed to the hall with a straight face. Hirschzen, who was severely injured by him, was obviously dead. Some white foam was on his lips. It was the after effect of the poison. His expression was stiff and ferocious. The skin on his head turned black, and black blood flowed from the openings on his head. His lips and throat had also turned purple. This signified that Hirschzen did in fact die from the poison, a deadly poison. The white foam that dripped from his lips had corroded and formed potholes on the stone floor. The last clue is fucking gone. Faye felt like there was an invisible hand that was controlling everything. He could see everything that was happening, but no clues were left behind. It seemed like the invisible hand was also influencing what he was doing to the degree where he felt controlled. Faye suddenly thought of something as he stared at Hirschzen's ugly dead face. He squatted down, swung his hand, took out a little bottle from his barbarian storage space, carefully collected some samples of the white foam on Hirschzen's lips and put the bottle back in the storage space. Since he is dead, he no longer has any value. Brooke, send someone to throw this body into the residence of Thrace's emissary group and deal with the rest of the corpses together. Be careful. This corpse contains a deadly poison. Faye signaled Brooke. Brooke was a bit surprised. He took away Hirschzen's body himself with the help of a soldier. When Faye returned to King's Palace, it was already midnight. Faye was still thinking about what had happened today. There were too many things that happened today. They all occurred so quickly that it was unbelievable. He thought back again and got more scared as he did so. More and more powerful masters had secretly entered Chambord. Even 6-star ranked masters had shown themselves. Faye could smell the conspiracy. Why did these people come to Chambord? Faye thought on his stone chair. Did the mythical ruins get exposed? It wasn't realistic. If that happened, then the underground cave in the back mountain would be chaotic by now. But the reality was that it was the quietest place at Chambord for the last couple of days. However, except for that, Faye couldn't come up with any other reasons for why so many powerful warriors and mages could come here. The coronation ceremony for a level 6 affiliated kingdom wasn't that attractive. Fatigue caught up with Faye. He slowly fell asleep as he processed the information. The next day, there were only 2 more days to go before the coronation ceremony. After enjoying breakfast in Angela and Emma's cheerful laughter, Faye watched the 2 girls leave the palace mysteriously. They said that they were preparing some kind of present for the ceremony. As Faye was getting ready to enter Diablo World to level up his assassin character, Warden Oleg rushed in a panic with palace's guard Michelle Barak. "Your Majesty, someone broke into the restricted area in the back mountain last night," the fatty shouted as he swiped the sweat off of his forehead. "What? Tell me more." Faye was surprised. He suddenly thought of something horrible. He was afraid that what he feared had actually occurred. Faye and Warden Oleg arrived at the restricted area in the back mountain. Fortunately, The intruder seemed to not know exactly where the entrance to the underground cave was at, and the intruder didn't have a clear objective. The intruder randomly searched the back mountain. When the intruder fought with Pierce and Drogba, the intruder quickly left after a quick contact. The person came and also left quickly, so Chambord didn't suffer any casualties or loss of any kind. The person wore a tight black suit, and their face was also covered. In the dark night, I didn't capture any details. The intruder was very strong. We couldn't get within 3 yards of the intruder. That person seemed like they didn't want any trouble and didn't want to kill anyone. The person left after a brief contact. It seemed like the person was trying to find something. The guards for the restricted area, including Pierce, told Faye what had happened last night with an embarrassed expression on their faces. Faye listened carefully and calmed down by the end. It was obvious that the intruder was a high-star ranked master. Although the guards had numerous years of experience in the military and on the battlefield, they weren't a match for the opponent. Luckily, the intruder left after a quick search. The guards chased after the person, but that didn't help at all. They didn't even find a single hair. Okay, I know what happened. Go back to your positions and be more alert from now on. Faye waved and sent the guards away. He carefully went around the back mountain and wanted to find any possible clue that the intruder might have left with. Black tornado. However, he didn't find anything. Even the sensitive smell of the dog was of no use. Finally, the man and the dog stood on the tip of the back mountain and glanced far away. The chilly breeze of the autumn morning carried the dry yellow leaves as they danced in the sky. The golden light of the morning sun shined over Chambord Castle and painted it into a golden castle like how it was described in the tales. This was a beautiful and quiet pure land. This was Faye's only home on the Azeroth continent. It doesn't matter who it is, but if they dare to put their hands on Chambord, I will cut their damn arms off without mercy. Faye tightened his fists and swore in his mind. The cold wind slowly calmed Faye down. He quickly found out that his prior thoughts were all wrong. He was misled by someone. There was only reason why he was encountering troubles. He wasn't strong enough. Both Faye's personal strength and Chambord Kingdom's strength were both too weak. Thinking about it, if Faye was a Sun-ranked master, or if Chambord was a level 9 empire, who would dare to cause these troubles in Chambord's territory? Therefore, the objective for Faye would be to increase his and his kingdom's strength. Then, he could take care of all the trouble with his fists. After thinking it through, Faye felt relieved as he had found some light in this period of darkness. He directly entered the underground cave, found a stone room and ordered a soldier to guard the entrance. He chose the assassin mode in the 3D Diablo selection screen and started leveling up his assassin character. After spending about 3 hours, Faye had completed 4 quests: Den of Evil, Sister's Burial Grounds, Search for Cain, and Tools of the Trade, and leveled the assassin character to level 10. In the process, Faye acquired another female mercenary. Her name was Irana. She was a young blue-hair pretty rogue, and she was a lightning magic archer. As Faye expected, she was similar to the mercenaries that his non-barbarian characters got. This girl behaved rigidly. She didn't have her own intelligence and thinking abilities. She was more like an ordinary NPC. This is strange. Why do only the NPCs at Rogue Encampment in my barbarian character's parallel world have intelligence and act like real people? In the other parallel worlds, such as my Paladin and Sorceress characters, and even other maps in my barbarian character's parallel world don't have this intelligence. This question was always on Faye's mind. After completing the 4 quests, Faye calculated the time and decided not to continue in assassin mode and switched to barbarian mode. He spent half an hour learning the potion composition skill from Akira, and then he went to the big busted Charcy. "Hey, beautiful forging master, how is that armor coming along?" Charcy, who was busy forging with the magic hammer, didn't say a word. She wiped sweat off of her forehand and threw a golden helmet at Faye. In the meantime, she was still hammering on a chest armor. "I knew you needed these sets of armors right away, so I worked all night long. But I only have this helmet completed." Faye caught the helmet with his hands, then said thanks and observed the helmet carefully. The helmet had a misty gold light around it. It didn't look like the standard T-shaped knight helmet that was common on Azeroth continent. Two yellow bull-like horns were located on the sides of the helmet, which looked domineering and ferocious. A line of shorter yellow spikes was located in between the two horns and pointed up towards the sky. This helmet had a mysterious magic. When you stared at it, you could almost see a tough bull showing its steel-like horns and charging at you. Taurus helmet. Perfect. Haha. This is perfect. Charcy, this is exactly what I wanted. Haha, you have perfectly made my design come to life. You are a genius at forging, plus 20 armor, and the user has the ability to cast the level 1 lightning spell? Charge Bolt. Although this helmet seemed a bit weak compared to the helmet that Faye was using, the additional effect was great. Plus, this helmet was only Charcy's practice piece, and she could only use chip gems when forging magic items. Once her forging ability increased, she would be able to use better gems and make stronger armor according to Faye's wish. Faye believed that one day this busty and pretty blacksmith would be able to forge out the perfect 12 sets of gold saint's cloth. For the last half hour before he had to leave Diablo World, Faye utilized his time at Charcy's and asked her to reforge the blue magic sword that she made before. The reforged magic sword turned into a golden sword. The design was simple. There were no pretty patterns. Parallel blades, it had a long pointy tip, the body of the sword was thick, and the handle could be griped by two hands. The guard on the sword looked like an eagle that opened its wings. Under the effect of the gems and magic power, the sword looked fascinating. It gave Faye an illusion that it could cut through any substance. Plus 20 attack damage and plus 20% attack accuracy. This was the property of the golden sword. Faye touched the blade of the sword and a chilling sensation came from his fingers. From now on, this sword will be called Excalibur. Excalibur, it was the ultimate weapon of the Gold Saints Capricorn Shura in the Japanese anime series Saint Seiya, could break any substance in the universe. It was indestructible and showered in the light of the sun and moon. It was a weapon that even the gods were afraid of. Faye wished that this sword could continuously level up and one day reach the sharpness and toughness of the true Gold Saint sword. After that was done, he was close to the time limit of the day. Before he exited the Diablo world, he reached out to the cold, mysterious voice in his head and tried to convert the Taurus helmet and the Gold Saint sword Excalibur into the real world. It wasn't the first time that Faye tried to convert weapons and items into the real world. Before, he wasn't able to convert anything other than potions and gems. The answer he got from that cold, mysterious voice was that his level wasn't high enough. But after considering that both items were newly designed by him and forged by Charcy, he wanted to try again. Taurus helmet, conversion success rate 100%, cost of conversion 10,000 gold coins. Magic sword Excalibur, conversion success rate 100%, cost of conversion 10,000 gold coins. Please confirm the conversions. What the voice said surprised Faye. 100% conversion success rate, it was unbelievable. Conversion confirmed. Conversion calculating. Successfully converted. Young warrior Faye, you have triggered one of the 3 legendary miraculous skills - give. You can give Taurus helmet and the magic sword Excalibur to anyone to use. There are no limits on it. Faye was overjoyed. In the underground cave inside the back mountain, Faye returned to the stone room from the Diablo world. He thought for a while and waved. After a light buzz, a blue oval portal appeared in the room and Charcy walked out of it. I have found you some assistants. Faye smiled as he pointed at the blacksmiths, such as Rock Samuel, who were sweating as they forged weapons in the hall at the underground cave. With helpers, maybe you could forge a bit faster. One more thing, if you could, please teach those guys a little. Their forging skills are far from good. It would be even better if you could take them as apprentices. Faye was like a creeper trying to trick kids with candies. He tried to entice Charcy so that the blacksmiths at Chambord could have the chance to learn Charcy's amazing forging skills. At first, Faye was worried that these bulky blacksmiths would not be too friendly, and it would be hard for Charcy to be around them. However, people with similar interests would naturally become friends in a very short amount of time. What actually happened was that at first, when Faye introduced Charcy to the blacksmiths, they didn't believe Faye. In their opinion, a pretty girl like Charcy was better off staying at home and taking care of kids and elders, not playing with hammers in front of a smoky forge. But after Charsi forged a sharp long sword with a huge hammer that weighed about 300 pounds in less than 10 minutes, all the blacksmiths were shocked. They almost bit their tongues. They forged weapons and armor for a living, and they could tell that Charsi was very experienced and had a set of unimaginable forging techniques just by looking at how she moved. All of them willingly became apprentices of Charsi one by one. The NPC from the Diablo world quickly mixed in with the aboriginals of Azeroth continent. Charsi's forging skills conquered everyone. After Charsi joined forces with Chambord's blacksmiths, the transformation speed of the underground cave improved dramatically. From Warden Oleg's calculations, the first stage of the transformation would be completed in half a month. Tell the warriors, including Pierce and Drogba, to see me in 4 hours at this stone hall. Faye ordered Oleg to pay attention to a few things and summoned the hot mercenary Elena and her sisters from the Diablo world to guard the underground cave just in case the mysterious intruders came again. Then he rode Black Tornado and left. The big black dog sprinted quickly down the mountain. It was very agile, but Faye didn't feel any bumps or tosses. In less than 10 minutes, they arrived at the region of Chambord that was the residence for emissaries of the other kingdoms. The tragedy that happened to Thrace Kingdom's emissaries had not yet been exposed to the public. Prince Modric of Lake Kingdom ordered his mages to set up a sensation isolation magic array around Thrace Kingdom's residence so that the bloody smell didn't leak out. When Faye arrived, the residence was still under strict surveillance of the King's Guard. "Your Majesty," the head of the team of King's Guard, Ivanovich quickly saluted as he saw Faye. Ivanovich was a guy that didn't like to talk, and he was one of the strong men who followed Faye and battled on the stone bridge when the black armored enemies invaded. He was a stone craftsman and was born with powerful physical strength. Now, he was one of Faye's team leaders in the King's Guards. He was highly trusted by Faye, and that was why he was chosen to lock down Thrace Kingdom's residence. "Team leader, thank you for your hard work." Faye tapped Ivanovich's shoulder and signaled him to continue guarding the building to not let anyone in. Faye and the big black dog jumped over the 4-yard-high stone wall. The courtyard and the building were filled with a bloody odor. A ton of blood had dried up and turned into black solids. Forensic doctors had investigated the scene all night long, but they didn't find any new clues. Faye didn't come here to investigate anymore since his targets were these corpses. From Faye's perspective, these bastards from Thrace Kingdom got what they deserved. However, their corpses were what Faye needed the most. They were the resources that Faye needed to use. Find potion. For the last week or so, there weren't many dead bodies in Chambord for Faye to use. Find potion? On, and he only had a limited amount of Hulk potions. Now, he had more than 200 corpses, and they were all his enemies. Faye didn't feel any mental burden. He squatted down and placed his right hand onto a corpse's chest. A light magical energy flowed out of his hand and onto the corpse. Find potion was used. Boom! The corpse blew into pieces and thick blood in the corpse that hadn't dried up yet spilled all over the ground. Faye didn't get a potion. However, Faye wasn't worried since there were a lot of corpses, so he was able to bear these losses. Plus, his barbarian character was already level 21, so the success rate of Find Potion had increased a lot. During the next 2 hours, Faye had repeated the same move. His barbarian's low mana was depleting at an insane rate. Fortunately, Faye had converted enough mana potions into the real world, so he was able to replenish his mana and use Find Potion numerous times. While Faye was doing that, the big black dog was sniffing through the entire residence, as if it was trying to find something, but it seemed like it wasn't successful. "Let's go, Blackie. There's nothing worth staying here for any longer." Faye had used Find Potion more than 130 times, consumed 16 mana potions, and in total got 26 bottles of Hulk Potion. Although it was less than what he was hoping for, that was enough for his upcoming plans. The man and the dog left Thrace Kingdom's residence. After 10 minutes, Faye found Priest Zola at the church. "There are 11,000 magic gems." Holy Knight Luciano escorted the fleet personally to St. Petersburg and back. The servants carried 10 huge chests that were made from black iron and placed them in front of Faye. The chests seemed very heavy as the servants were shaking and sweating after they put the chests down. Zola pointed at the cross-sword concave symbol on one chest and explained patiently, "These holy chests are specially designed and forged to safeguard important and precious scriptures and items. Unless someone injects the purest holy energy onto the cross-sword symbol, the chest won't open. If people try to open it with brute force, the chest will be destroyed, and so would the items inside the chest." Faye had switched to paladin mode before he entered the church. Now, he pushed a small amount of the golden paladin's aura out of his fingers and injected it into the cross-sword symbol on one holy chest. He heard a series of small mechanical noises that were made from the gears and springs. A tiny holy light ring flashed in the hall and crack! The chest opened itself up. A red light instantly lit up the dark secret chamber at the back of the church. The holy chest was filled with more than 1,000 fire-attributed magic gems. In Diablo world terms, these were chipped ruby gems. The gems were flashy and carried a burning energy. The air around them felt dry and uncomfortable. These beautiful precious stones would make any ordinary person ecstatic. The other holy chests contain other types of magic gems. Water, earth, metal? Zola explained with a humble expression on his face. He believed that Faye was the God's favorite child. In the legends, without a doubt. All he could think of was how to hold on to Faye tighter so that he could have a better future. Good work! Faye nodded in satisfaction. These attributed gems will be kept at the church for now. When I need them, I will send some here to pick them up. Faye picked a few magic gems from each chest and put them in his pocket. The decision of keeping more than 10,000 magic gems at the church was not an impulsive decision. At this point, Chambord was under great danger. Even the underground cave was not very secure. He might even be under surveillance. Therefore, these magic gems shouldn't be moved around. The safest bet was to keep them at the church. The Holy Church was the most powerful force on the continent after all, and it was very protective of all of its personnel and properties. Ordinary warriors and mages wouldn't dare cause trouble at the church. My pleasure. It would be a great honor. After hearing that Faye was intending to leave an enormous amount of magic gems under his keep, Zola was overjoyed. It was a very important job and Faye left it all to him. He felt that all of his hard work paid off. Faye had finally trusted him and treated him as one of his men. After he left the church, Faye rode the big black dog and went around the kingdom aimlessly for a while. The big black dog suddenly turned into a tornado, rushing to the back mountain and entering the underground cave. The guards who were securing the restricted areas were the hundreds of soldiers who were picked out by check. They had drank the diluted Hulk potion. Pierce and Drogba were patiently waiting for him in the stone hall. "Your Majesty!" After seeing Faye's arrival, Pierce and others didn't hide their admiration at all. They all kneeled down and saluted. On Azeroth continent, under the law of the jungle, the powerful warriors and mages would be worshipped by ordinary people and soldiers. "All rise." Faye turned around and sat down on a stone chair in the hall and glanced through everyone. Everyone felt the solemn atmosphere. The king seemed to have something extremely important to announce. Faye's eyes landed on Pierce, the white-haired brave man. This robust warrior left Faye with a first impression that was yet to be topped. On the defense wall in the death battle, to destroy the enemy's siege ladder, this man risked his life to lock down a powerful enemy's rapier with his flesh and blood. It was also this sturdy warrior who followed him voluntarily and charged into the thousands of enemies. He was extremely loyal, even if it meant bleeding and dying. The impression of Pierce in Faye's mind gradually merged with another figure in his mind. A gold light flashed by and a simple, classic double-handed sword appeared in Faye's hand. This gold sword has a glorious name, Excalibur. It was the weapon of a most loyal warrior. His name was Shura. In Shura's hands, this sword could make even gods tremble and fear. It could cut through any substance in the universe and shatter all the evil and darkness. It's a sword of a guardian, a sword of honor, a sword of loyalty, a sword of bravery. Today, I will bestow this sword to one of you, Fei held the sword by the hilt, and the golden light from the sword enveloped him, making him look like a god. With a smile, his eyes focused on Pierce.